Hello students, today we're going to talk about adjusting your image with levels and curves. And there are multiple ways of doing this which we're going to discuss in this tutorial. Very first thing that you always do is duplicate your background layer. And we're going to first talk about levels. And there are two ways to do this. I'm going to show you both. But the first way is image, adjustments, and levels. And what comes up here is called a histogram. And essentially what it's doing is it's kind of telling you where your light and dark areas are. And what you want to do is you want to pull in a little bit from each side, the black and the white side, wherever things kind of dip. If they seem a little too low or a little sketchy, like here on the edge here, you want to pull them in ever so slightly. And you might have seen just a very small change in the photo there. Now the gray in here will take care of your midtones. So obviously this is black, this is your dark areas. It's adjusting everything that's dark, either making it darker or making it lighter, but you want to at least just try and pull it in a little bit. This here is adjusting your light areas, so it's adjusting just the light parts of the picture. This in here is obviously then adjusting the midtones, everything kind of in between. And again, you'll notice that these are very minor adjustments that I am making on these that you are able to do. But I just wanted to show you that this is a more sophisticated way rather than just using shadow highlight or brightness contrast to go in and attempt to do this. And I do encourage you, to look into further tutorials about levels on your own. Up here is an RGB, and it will show you kind of what the red levels look like. And as you kind of pull in, it will bring in or pull out more red levels, and it will do the same with the green and the blue. So we know there's a good bit of green in here. Let's go back and take a look at what happens. See, I'm pulling some of that green out. It's bringing red back in. So it kind of does the opposite of what direction you are going in that way. But I wanted you to know that that is how you adjust levels. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK, and it's just a slight adjustment here with the levels. So I'm going to show you eyeball on and off, just made my dark areas a little darker but added some saturation. If you look at the color is a little bit richer. So maybe though what I'd want to do instead is maybe lighten up some of those darker areas. So I'm actually going to delete this background copy. I'm going to make another background copy here, and I'm going to show you another way to work with layers, and that is to add an adjustment layer. And all of these are adjustment layers up here. We're going to work with the second one in here, which is called levels. And notice that immediately what it does is it creates its own layer on top of your other layers. And basically what this does is every layer that sits underneath this particular adjustment layer, it will adjust. So let's see if I can make some of those darker areas a little bit lighter there for me. Okay, and again I get the same effect, but now that effect is in its own layer rather than actually on my background copy. So I can choose how it is that I want to brighten up that photo just a little bit. In fact, I think I want to get some saturation back in here. Okay. Again, very slight adjustments to this particular image. Okay, so now I'm going to actually delete that levels layer and show you the very same thing with curves. And you can find curves again in two spots. First place is image adjustment and curves. And essentially what happens here is this top triangle here is all of your light spots. Okay, it will lighten your image. The bottom part here are all of your dark spots or dark parts of the image, okay, that you can decide to work with. And curves is kind of a tricky thing. I mean, you can play around and make this picture look completely distorted, or you can adjust it to make it look better. It really is, but it's very sensitive in the way that you choose to do that. So what I do want to show you though is when you bring, you'll see this little eyedropper over here. If you click on a particular part of the image, take a look over at the grid there, you'll see if I hit Control while I'm doing that, it will make a point. Okay, and so very much like when you're using your your lasso tools, your magnetic lasso tool, you're making a point here. And so from that point, from whatever that color was that I sampled, I want to lighten that color. So I drag that part up. Now, obviously I can't just lighten the green without affecting other parts of the picture. So let's say, okay, I think it's making some of my other parts too bright, so maybe I sample part of the wood, okay, and I hit my control key, and now I have that there. And then maybe I want to bring that part down just a bit, okay. And I can make a third point up here just randomly if I choose to, and make this a little bit lighter here, okay. So one thing about curves is, as I've read in some things in tutorials, an S curve is the direction that you want to go. You want to avoid having what's called flat spots, which is like pulling this up and having a flat image here. And you can see how much that distorts the picture right there, okay? And you also want to avoid kind of having a backwards S or major dips. Again, if you're looking for some crazy, kind of filter-like look to your image, which I think we're kind of beyond as level 3s, you may try and manipulate the photo that way. But I believe that making a strong S curve or a slight S curve is going to be better for your image. I'm going to hit OK. Before I do that, again, you can choose how you want your reds, your greens, and your blues separately to be curved and come out. If you want to experiment with those, again, I encourage you to do some more of your own investigation. Also, if you wanted to delete a point, obviously whichever point is blacked out and highlighted, you would click and hit delete, and that would erase it. I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and to show you the difference between my image. I've lightened it up. While I've lost a little bit of the saturation of color, in some areas I feel like the picture overall is lighter, so you can decide which image you like best. Now again, if I delete this background copy, make a new copy, I can also add an adjustment layer of curves, which doesn't give me that really big image of the curve out here, but I have to mess with it inside here. So from here I can make my own points, or I can use I can sample with my colors here and decide how exactly I want to adjust my layers. Okay, and that gives me my own adjustment layer again separately from the image, so it's not actually placing it on the background copy, but it is adjusting it without having it kind of locked into that space there, which gives you a little bit more freedom with your photograph. Okay, so I encourage you to play around with curves and levels to increase the lightness, or sometimes an overexposed picture darken down and bring back some of the saturation in your images in a little more of a sophisticated way. And I think you'll find that this will help you with your HDR photos as well. Good luck.